Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland. I'm on the Royal Mile in Edinburgh, in front of the statue of Adam Smith. Well, if you know anything about economics, he won't need an introduction. But here's a bit for the more general viewer. He was born here in Scotland in 1723. Not in Edinburgh, but in Kirkcaldy, which is the other side of the Firth of Forth. That's a bay. He came from a middle-class family. When he was very young, his father died. Adam Smith was a very odd child and intellectually precocious. So he went to the University of Glasgow very early. There are only 4 universities in Scotland at the time. Bear in mind, of course, only a tiny minority of boys went to university, perhaps 1%, and of course no girls until the 1850s. A lot of people didn't go to school at all. Anyway, he was very unusual, had an odd manner of speaking and walking, and seemed to forget himself, perhaps have a bit of echolalia, and repeat certain movements hundreds of times a day. So now we'd probably think he had something like Asperger's syndrome, and that was coupled with narrow interests and the most exceptional flair for certain subjects. So he's studying political economy, as they then called it. So he's the father of modern economics, and he's the one who really propounded a theory of capitalism, though he didn't use the term capitalism, about why we have private property, why it's a good thing, what private enterprise can do, and things like that. And his most famous opus is The Wealth of Nations. It's got a longer title about an inquiry into the wealth and poverty of nations and blah blah blah. 18th century books tend to have a title as long as your arm. And it's laid out in very lucid prose. And here I'm quoting from memory, saying something like, it's not out of benevolence that we can thank the butcher and the baker for doing a good job. Saying because if people pursue their personal interests, then society at large gains. Because I, the businessman, I want to make as much money as possible, and I do that by providing a superb service. Now, there are some drawbacks to his theory. Of course, I also want to pay wages as low as I can get away with and charge as much as I possibly can. So that's where exploitation could creep in, and I could have a virtual monopoly, and blah blah blah. So the Scots universities were well ahead of the English ones at the time. Edinburgh here was the Athens of the North. He did live in Edinburgh, actually, very close to here for a while, and indeed he's buried a few hundred yards away in Canongate Kirkyard. Kirk being the Scottish word for a church, just like Dutch. Anyhow, and later he went to Balliol College, Oxford. So the English universities were really in the doldrums. They were completely decadent. Their fellowships for the dons, that's positions for the lecturers, they were largely sinecures. They were often handed out on the basis of nepotism, and there was a lot of ecclesiastical patronage there. But people weren't promoted on basis of merit, hard work, accomplishment, or anything like that. But anyway, he introduced a bit of intellectual rigor to Oxford and really improved matters there. And he was forward-thinking. He looked to America, 13 colonies as it was then, and saw that it was growing rapidly and becoming more prosperous. And he thought the obvious solution to discontent there was to allow these colonies representation in the British Parliament. He was a firm believer in the Act of Union, which is a relatively new thing in his childhood, that Scotland, Wales and England should form a single realm with one parliament. Ireland, we weren't part of that at the time. But anyway, as the population of America grew, if it became larger, the capital of this United Kingdom, to include America, should shift from London to somewhere over in America. That was his vision. Anyway, it didn't come to pass, as we know. So he died in 1790. He's author of a number of works, but I've mentioned his most illustrious one. He's got an institute named in his honour. That's Adam Smith.